So, hi, Hirsch Saha here, reporting from, as usual, Auckland, New Zealand, and today is Sunday, the 11th of August 2019. This is actually a very interesting concept I've come across and I've sort of had in me for quite a while because it's a really good example of some of you might remember or might have come across the concept of double think, in quotes, double think, which comes from George Orwell's book 1984, published in 1949. And he referred to in that book as double think of sort of being on both sides of an argument. You know, you could be for an argument for some reasons, and you could be against something in an argument for other reasons, and really just, you know, when it suits you or when it's appropriate, you choose which side you want to be on for an argument. And I used to always think that I could pretty much make up my mind, or at least almost make up my mind, so I'll always be on one side of an argument no matter what, and not sort of be contradicting, to be on different sides of an argument just whenever it suited me or whenever it was more appropriate. But there was one thing which I must sort of admit to, that I found actually quite hard to decide which side of the argument to be on, and this was actually on parenting and being strict on children and looking at how things are going in this generation and the generation before us. I do remember actually coming across in a TV program when two parents were talking at their dinner table, and the father said to the mother that, well, you know, I'm really, really strict on him referring to their son. He said, I'm very, very strict on him, I'm very, very tough on him, because it's a horrible world out there, and I have to toughen him up for it, otherwise he simply won't survive. So, you know, beat that. How can you argue with that? And the mother then said something which I would never forget. She said, well, yes, I agree. It is a horrible, horrible world out there. So wouldn't it be nice if he could come home to a place where he is loved and nurtured and cared for and continually told that everything will be okay? And the father was a bit speechless, well, at least for, you know, 1 or 2 seconds after that, before he just retaliated with a joke. But I thought that was actually a very interesting concept. You know, if it's such a horrible world out there, and you're thinking you want to be strict on kids to make them tough for it, isn't it better to actually make, you know, their world at home much, much, you know, supportive and loving and all that? I mean, isn't that what home should be? A sanctuary from the rest of the world? So that's one argument for, you know, going easy on children and taking really good care of them at home. But there is another argument. I actually remember speaking to one of my older relatives from the previous generation, and he said that for decades and decades, I thought that, you know, I could make things much better for my children so that they don't have to go through what I've been through. You know, I came from a very poor family. There were many kids. There wasn't even enough food to go around. If I so much as thought of not doing the right thing, I was beaten. You know, these were the times of corporal punishment, and my parents were very strict on me. And as a result, that older relative of mine worked very hard. He finished school, he went to university, he spent over a decade in university. He was first in his university in the end. He got a PhD, 5 degrees in total, and he did very well, no doubt about that. He did extremely well, starting from basically nothing to doing very well, and moving from India to a Western country. So by his parents being very tough on him, he basically ended up being very strong. And he also said that despite that, I always thought that when, you know, for my children, I can make things much better. But then when I see the current generation, you know, who feel very self-entitled, who are quite spoilt in many ways, for whom poverty is not having the latest iPhone or gadget or app or what have you, you know, and who feel that, like I said, yeah, they're entitled to everything, who complain about so much, who don't even have the patience to have families, etc., etc. He said that when I see that, and when I see how much that the current generation has been pampered, you know, like here in New Zealand, it's now illegal to smack children, and sometimes even yelling at children, even if they deserve it, can get parents and teachers and adults in a lot of trouble, let alone hitting them. They can get them in even more trouble. He said that when I see what has happened and what it's caused, I'm actually glad that I had it hard, because when the kids are treated so well or given, you know, or pampered too much, this is what happens. They end up spoiled. They feel entitled to everything. They look for the perfect person in a potential partner who obviously doesn't exist. They're too picky with everything, and then they don't want to work hard. They're not patient. They don't want to save for a long time for, say, a car or a trip or a house. And they buy everything on credit because they want it now. And as a result, they accumulate a lot of debt. So it's interesting to have sort of those two arguments. One saying that it's good to take to really pamper the kids because it's a horrible world outside, so home can be a real sanctuary for them. But the other argument that says that, well, if you pamper them too much, they're going to end up weak and demanding and feeling entitled to everything and impatient and just immature. So it's all that those are two different sides of one argument on whether or not you should pamper children at home. And I actually, funnily enough, kind of agree with both. But I think really what it comes down to is finding, like with anything, the perfect balance between the two. And that, of course, is much easier said than done. I mean, where exactly is the perfect balance? And I'm sure it will depend on the parents involved and the children too. But that's really what it comes down to. And probably the same goes for virtually, well, maybe not every single argument, but for many, many arguments. Not always just the for or against, or the two extremes, but somewhere in the middle where you can find a balance based on the current situation. And that balance will probably be different for each individual or each family or each group of people, each individual situation. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, finding the perfect balance. And I guess that's probably what is the take-home package of all this. So there you have it. Cool. Thank you.